pet subject, entrepreneurship. But before we get on to the entrepreneurship, please indulge me while I have this little rant. You know, there's been this thing called the Gupta leaks, and we're seeing the dominoes starting to fall. McKinsey, the auditing company, have suspended the person who signed this document that claimed that they were working with Trillion Capital. Bell Pottinger. Oh, we're coming back to let's do Bell Pottinger last because theirs is a little bit more. And we've got the German computer company SAP, which has suspended its South African management, administrative management. But interestingly enough, all our law enforcement agencies are stum. They're silent. Nothing. Nada. Nothing coming out of them. In any other country, there would have been a flurry of activities. Officers would have been being search and seizure happening, and there would have been people in the SOEs would have been put on suspension. I mean, here's this guy, Anoj Singh. The Prasa fiasco around the big kickback of 5.2 billion happened under his watch as the CFO when he was at Transnet. Then he gets moved from Transnet when Brian Molefe, who was the CEO, moves to Eskom, takes him along. When they get to Eskom, we have all these other shenanigans that take place, and he's still the CFO. He's not suspended. Makes you wonder. But the interesting thing, and we're pinning our hopes on this, is that the Americans, when it comes to bribery and corruption, they've got this thing called the Securities and Exchange Commission. And if your company has ever done any business in the US or used an American bank anywhere in the world, they will investigate you. They've called it the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Now, SAP have their headquarters in LA. Of course, we know that Price Waterhouse, strong American connection. KPMG, strong American connection. So we're expecting the Securities and Exchange Commission to be investigating these companies, and maybe our money will come back. Bell Pottinger, that PR company that basically set South Africans up against each other and tried to foment a racial war in South Africa just for their own nefarious ends. Now, the South Africans in the UK are not sitting on their laurels. They've picked up their cudgels and they are fighting. First, they trolled them, Bell Pottinger on Twitter, which forced Bell Pottinger to actually make their Twitter account private. Thereafter, they're now reporting them. They've already got 13,000 signatures. They're sending it to Parliament in the UK for the Parliament there to take up the matter. But most importantly, tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock, they are going to be having a demonstration outside Bell Pottinger's offices in London. And their rallying call is going to be pay back the money. As you know, they were paid £100,000 per month, which is about 2.5 million rand per month, basically to make South Africans fight with each other. Now, that's doing something. But now, let's get to the economy, our wonderful economy. We spoke about being in when we reach junk status. We've spoken about the recession. Now we're being told that the consumer confidence index is at -9, and it has been in the minus figures for 3 consecutive years. What is the consumer confidence index? Basically, it's about you and I and our confidence in the economy, which reflects itself in the way we spend and the way we save. And clearly, we have no confidence in the economy. Maybe, just maybe, it's time that we made sure that the people that we put in that institution that we call Parliament are people who have at least had some kind of formal work experience outside of politics, because you've got almost 400 people sitting in an establishment, basically telling business people how to run businesses, yet they have never run businesses. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this now, because our guest today is a young gentleman called Jeremy Lang. Jeremy Lang comes from a company called Business Partners. Now, Business Partners is formerly what in the olden days was SBDC. He was too young then for him to have been part of SBDC. So, he's part of Business Partners. Jeremy, welcome to Kofifi.
Thanks, Rosemary, for having me on your show, and also good afternoon to your listeners.
Now, before we get cracking on this is my pet subject, I must give out this information. Our WhatsApp SMS line 071 425 9577. Our Facebook, Kofifi FM 97.2. Twitter at Kofifi FM _972, Instagram at Kofifi FM, and we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. YouTube, Kofifi TV Conversations with Rosemary. Now, with as I mentioned now, the state of the economy. I mean, Stats South Africa, it was the Institute of Race Relations that released those figures recently about 17 million people being on social welfare and only 15 million people in formal employment. And of those 15 million in formal employment, I believe almost a third are civil servants. So they are also basically being paid by 10 million people. So basically, South Africans are being financed by 10 million people. And we've reached a stage where your organization becomes even more important. This is something I speak about every now and then on the show, where we are trying to encourage entrepreneurship. And your company, do I call it a company or an organization?
It is a company.
Okay. Now, your company is playing in this space. Please tell us, what is Business Partners?
Thank you, Rosemary. Business Partners has been around now for 30
in whether it's post matric or whatever, but they have entrepreneurial skills. Now, consultants can be quite intimidating because they like to use technical terms and stuff like that. How user-friendly are your consultants?
They really are very professional. They are well taught and upskilled and developed. So my experience is there's a high level of competency around the ability even to deal with customers. So customers or potential clients should not feel intimidated, but express their skill set and abilities. If it's lacking, if it's small enough that we can plug it through giving them some help, some specialist skills, then we do that as part of the investment. If the hole is too big, if the business skill is just completely lacking, then as a funder you are very uncomfortable to invest money in that business. So that's the assessment that we ultimately make. But the consultant does discuss with other line managers in Business Partners before we go back and give any outcome. And if we are going to walk the road with the client, there are higher levels of managers that will also come and meet with the client. It's not just one consultant that meets and a decision's made. Not at all. We even go out, sometimes even the MD comes out and goes and visits the client. That is not unusual neither.
That's a breath of fresh air.
So that's the level of which we engage with our client, because between 3 or 4 experienced people, there's a wealth of knowledge, and collectively, if you're all feeling in the same direction, then that gives you confidence that your decision is the right one.
Now, if somebody comes to you with a business plan, and because you are so, as you say, you've funded over 70,000 businesses, which is actually, it means you guys actually have a really firm grip in terms of your knowledge of what's happening in the economy. And would you advise somebody to say, look, why don't you rather look at selling apples rather than bottled water? Would you do that?
Yeah, I don't think ultimately it is our our place to say where you must go, what you must go and do.
I mean, maybe I'm being too specific. Maybe would you say to them that industry right now, like you were saying, for example, with the resources sector of underground mining, that it's so volatile. Would you advise them, say, look, that's volatile, why not? Have you thought about X, Y, and Z?
You see, by the time an entrepreneur approaches us, we expect them to be really passionate about the industry they want to invest
all right,
in.
okay.
Now, if they're as equally passionate about apples as they are about water, then great.
They're probably passionate about being entrepreneurs. I don't think that most people are passionate about a particular thing. There are those who are. But you'll hear a lot of people saying, look, I want to run my own business. And that's my dream. And in that case, do you say the opportunities actually lie in these fields? I mean, as in broad
I understand
strokes.
your question.
Yeah.
So we would normally come back and say this is a risky industry for us at the moment. For example, let's talk specifics. In the current economy, we think the transport and logistics industry is quite high risk for us at the moment.
Really? Oh,
we think
okay.
the beauty and spa industry is quite high risk at the moment.
Okay.
Anything linked to disposable spend. I think for beauty.
The
Coming back to the
consumer confidence index.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those sorts of industries are really under pressure. General retail is under pressure.
So consumption.
Yeah. So we do have really good insight to what, and we can feel it by we engage with our clients every day. We've got a few thousand clients that we engage with, and we get similar feedback from them across these industries, and that together with the information that gets released on a quarterly basis, we will come back and say, listen, maybe not right now. We think this is quite a high risk industry, difficult to penetrate the market and so on at this stage. And also the ones that do well, we're quite active in the education industry, for example.
Oh yes, that's a huge growth sector.
And for us, we've been very successful in the sector. So that's one that we're a little bit more aggressive in. But Rosemary, this changes from year to year as the economy changes. So our views on these things does change, and our risk appetite changes, rightfully so, in terms of the sectors that are performing and not performing. Not to say we won't invest there at all, but we will be more cautious.
You would advise. Listeners already want your contact details. We'll get to the contact details. I'm getting a good sense here in terms of knowledge. I mean, I've had a couple of other companies that do financing, but I didn't get a sense of the depth of knowledge in terms of doing business. Now, what else are you looking for? Because I know you were talking about financials and all of that. You would, if it's a going concern.
So if it's an existing business approaching us for finance, we would require the following as a minimum. So before we get into the real detail, we take a high-level look and say, is there something that we are keen on pursuing with the applicant or not? Why we do that is we don't want to waste the client's time. We walk down a path for 9 months and then we say no. So we don't want to do that. So what we ask for initially is CV profile of the people, key people involved in the business, financial statements, if it's an existing business. Now, I would just want to pause there. And just from anecdotal experience, we cannot make decisions on 2-year-old numbers. We need up-to-date financials. Any investor looking to invest in a business, up to the, I would say, latest set of management accounts, but at least the last signed year's financial statements, annual financial statement. And then lastly, a cash flow forecast, assuming that the funding is granted. We need to be able to, there's a clear link between those whom have received mentorship and technical assistance. They have a much lower default rate, meaning they have a much bigger propensity to pay. And the other one is the profitability is higher. So it shows that there is an impact on this mentorship in the business.
Now, because we're running out of time and there's been a demand for your contact details, Jeremy Lang Business Partners, they fund entrepreneurs. So please, Jeremy, I even know your email address off by heart now because I actually sent it to somebody before the show. J Lang at Business Part. Oh, please.
So they're welcome to send me a mail on jlang at businesspartners.
Lang spelled Lang.
At businesspartners.co.za. They're also welcome to contact us on 011 713 6600, and we'll make sure that they get in contact with the correct person.
And Jeremy is the regional manager for this area. So he's our guy. I was going to say he's your guy. He's our guy. So, now, Business Partners, 1981, that's a long time, over 70,000 businesses. That is an equally long time. Jeremy Lang from Business Partners, thank you very much for that very informative session. And also, I hope you are all inspired to go now and start working on those business plans. Jeremy, if you could please say goodbye to your friends from Kofifi for today.
No, Rosemary, thank you very much for having me on the show. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to participate in discussions like this. Thank you very much.
Stay tuned to Kofifi FM.